Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Sun is Coming podcast. I'm here with Kaleb, my co-host, and my very good friend, Joey Harris. Thanks for joining us, man, and hanging out. We're all here at Philo Conference and having a blast, and you were in town, and I'm like, oh, yeah, by the way, actually, that was this morning. We were like, hey, do you still want to record a podcast? I'm like, yes, I totally do. So let's do that.
Absolutely.
So thanks for coming out, dude.
Well, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
I was thinking back to when I'm trying to think of when I met you for the first time. It was probably in person in Quincy. Mm-hmm. This would have been like 2019, like right before COVID, I think.
Yeah, site visit.
Yep, on a site visit, and showed up, and you toured me around some church campuses that I didn't know could exist in the locations that they were at the crossing down in Quincy. And so then the rest is history. We've known each other for a little while now and all the things that you've done. But one of the reasons why, we wanted to bring you on, because that season for you at the crossing was super interesting. Just like as an outsider, when I went in the first time, seeing how you guys did multi-site. I was a multi-site production director at the time too, but it was so vastly different than what I had ever seen in church or the way that I was doing it. And I was like, this is really interesting. I don't know if it works everywhere, but it totally works here. And so we'll chat a little bit about it, but I'm excited.
It's only appropriate, very on theme, since it's Philo Conference week. We're actually talking about production with a production person.
We don't really do that
often. This conversation or this podcast we don't talk that much about actual production, but it's good to dig in every now and then.
Yeah,
so.
I appreciate being called a production person because it is never like I've never felt.
You don't
like
have a Leatherman
person.
and a flashlight in your pocket right now.
Never. No, and any real production person like
Totally.
you can suss me out real quick.
Yeah.
That no, you're not. You're not really a production person. I like people more than gear. Yeah. And that's usually a dead giveaway.
Yeah. That's good though.
Yeah.
I remember at Philo.
Those are the best production people though.
Totally. I remember it would have been like the first maybe couple of years of Philo. Like I remember Dave and Aubrey had brought, I think they were like giving a prize to the person who had the most things on their belt at the conference.
Oh, sure, right.
And this guy had like 7 things on his belt. And I'm like,
I remember
dude.
that. Was that at Crystal Lake?
Yes.
Oh, so
and I'm
good.
like, this is like, we're at a conference, dude. Like, why do you have all those
we
things?
Todd didn't ask us to do this, but we should plug Philo for next year. If
We
you're
totally
hearing
should.
us talk about Philo and you're like, what is that? We don't know what that is. It's this conference to encourage and train church production leaders and volunteers and staff. And they haven't announced yet, but in the next day, they're going to announce the event dates for next year. So maybe Google it or ask ChatGPT to tell you when Philo 2026 will be.
Yeah.
And if you're in production in a church context, maybe check it out.
Yeah.
End of announcement.
Yeah. And it stands for first in, last out. If you didn't know what Philo stands for.
Yeah.
But very, very fun. It's been this is my, I don't know how many Philos it's been, but is this the 10th year?
That's the
This
11th.
is 11. Last year.
Oh, yeah. But anyways, it's crazy. So lots of friends hanging out with us and chatting about lots of fun things. So,
But rewind. So you said you're not a production person. You
Correct.
don't think of yourself that way, but somehow you got into production.
Yeah.
Because that is what you do now, right?
It is.
We didn't
it
have the
is.
wrong person on the podcast.
No,
Okay,
no,
great.
it is 100%.
So you do production. So give
Yeah.
us like just a brief little backstory of how did you end up in production? How did you get connected with, the church at Quincy, and kind of how did that whole thing start?
Yeah. It started involuntarily, as most production people do. My dad was a senior pastor at the church, and it was a tiny little church called Payson Road Christian Church, and little tiny town called Quincy, Illinois. Had about 40,000 people in it, so it felt big if you're from a rural community, and it's really tiny if you're from anywhere else. So depending on your context, but took over kind of a crazy, came in after a really rough season of that church, and man, dude, grace of God and favor was on my dad and my family, and started at 150. They were in this tiny little building, and then they were traveling to the local high school and doing church in this local high school. And from there, just by really changing the culture and what the crossing and my dad was really about was they wanted people to have an intimate, personal relationship with Jesus Christ. That was the phrase. That was our vision statement, our mission statement. That's always what we went after. And the churches kind of started exploding from there and just growing and growing and growing. I mean, probably one of the craziest things that happened was we're probably 250 people, maybe 300 at the time. And we're trying to figure out, we didn't want to be in the building we were in. And my parents were just driving around Quincy trying to figure out what to do. And they were going to look at these, like there was this local community college that had these little outbuildings. And they're like, oh, maybe we do an outbuilding. And so they walked through it with the college people, and they're like, hey, well, actually, the entire college is for sale. And they're like, well, we can't afford that. And we're just coming out of this crazy season. And I can't remember the exact number, but they just prayed over it. And he couldn't have been on the job more than 6 months. Goes to his elders and is like, let's buy a community college. It was
crazy.
so, and the crazy thing was that the elders went, he pitched it. They go, can you leave the room? So he's like, GG, game over.
Yeah.
It's done. And then they talked, and then they asked him to come back in. And they go, let's do it. Just sheer total faith. I mean, throughout my whole experience with the crossing, it's probably one of the greatest things was the value of amazing God-fearing and God-willing elders. Just absolutely changed our church. So we took a crazy leap. The only way we could afford it is we had to have at least 25% growth every single year over year.
Okay.
Only way we could afford it. And God provided. And our church exploded. Multiple services, figuring out, we filled out a whole gymnasium, had to figure out how to do IMAG. And because we had to fit more people in the room. Well, you had this auditorium, but behind it was the old cafeteria. And so we're like, well, let's turn that into more seats. And everyone's like, well, if you do that, they're going to be staring at his butt the whole time. So okay, let's put a screen up. And then and some old PTZ, before they were PTZ cameras. And they figured out how to do that, and that's how they started switching that way. Then they're like, oh, for 2/3 of the message, I'll face the main congregation, and then for the last third, I'll turn around and face the back one. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, now we have to switch. Now we need cameras on the other side and flip that around. It's and we had so many people, they were lined up outside the auditorium. And so as one service ended, we had another service begin. So the band just kept playing. The outro was the intro.
That's crazy. I didn't know any of that. That's wild.
It's just cycle them in over and over and over. And it got huge. We ended up building an amazing building that is the same building that they're in right now. And the church has just seen so much change, so much growth. And then it's like, okay, we filled the space out, new auditorium, looks great. What's next? And so they took the executive team and went in Life Church, did this it's Experience Life Church or something called like that, where you could do a tour and they kind of let you go behind the scenes. And so they took a bunch of people to that. And they went and they fell in love. The Life Church model was this is awesome. Funny part was they went to the main campus, which this was a long time ago. So I think the main campus at that time was Oklahoma City, I think.
Yeah, well, I don't think it was Edmond or whatever it is now, yeah.
And so went there and actually didn't like the experience all that much. Then went to a video venue and loved it.
Interesting.
And that's when they went, this works.
Yeah.
And so, but it's okay, how do we put our spin on this? Because we're in a town of 40,000. So city data or the government refers to communities that are 50,000 or less. Okay. They are the Walmart in the sea of corn and beans. You know, it's where the towns of 800s, 1200s, 10,000s go, oh, this is where, like, I got to go get groceries. I got to drive 20 minutes.
Got it, yeah.
Those are called micropolitan communities. And they're just these islands all over the spot that they're not all dying churches, all economically depressed areas, but they need Jesus. And their churches, like, they have old pastors that they can't afford anymore, and they don't know what to do. And so, you know, he's going, can we take the Life Church model and apply it in this rural context? And that's what we did. And literally it was on the drive back, they were just talking, and they go, what's an area around Quincy that needs Jesus? What's a dark area? And it was one of the other executive pastors' wives that goes, I'm going to school at Western Illinois University in Macomb, and it's a dark place. And that was it.
That's crazy.
They said, okay, we're going to Macomb. No like surveys, no like, you know, what's the community look like? How many churches are there? It was just.
What's the average income per capita? Yeah.
Oh yeah, none of that. I mean, it was just, oh, okay, I guess we're going there. That's the spot we're going to go.
Crazy.
And they bought an old Thompson food basket, which is like, you know, any other, but it had sat run down for like 10 plus years. We're pulling out all of the refrigerators and mold 10 feet high.
Gosh.
Awful. We bought seats from a vacant movie theater, and so we like got a bunch of volunteers to just scrape gum off of the bottom.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was crazy, but you know, it was what's amazing about micropolitan communities is it's actually really cheap to do church because there's so many abandoned buildings. We would rarely, if ever, build a building. If I'm thinking, I don't think we ever did. We always just took over buildings and renovated because it was way cheaper to do that, and you just figure stuff out, you know. And so Macomb started, and you know, and I just being a part of that as a pastor's kid, seeing this epic growth.
Because how old are you in all this
season? We came to Quincy when I was 8 years old. And when we launched Macomb, I think I was 17.
That's crazy.
Or something like that. So in this span.
So you were probably part of the gum scraping crew.
I was 100% part of the gum scraping crew, man. Oh yeah. I was in the thick of it through all that because you're a senior pastor's kid. They can't afford daycare. Yeah. You're going with them wherever they're going, running the halls. I was the classic pastor's kid that every Sunday school teacher hated because I ran the place. So and funny. They need to know who my dad is. Yep. And you don't get to mess with me. I was awful. And so anyway, so my story with all that is just kind of growing up. Explosive growth is amazing, but I think a lot of people don't understand the dark side of that. So we're in rural communities. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows everybody's business. I don't know of a church we didn't make really mad in that process.
Sure.
And so like the story I always tell people, like if you ever want to know what the cost is of being especially a senior pastor's kid, is I was in the 8th grade, and back then you couldn't have book bags. You had to like hold your books or something like that.
Weird.
And so I'm walking down when I got my books in one hand and like holding my books, going to my next class. And here comes this girl coming down, and I don't know who she is, bawling her eyes out. Just comes up to me and like right up to me and just bam, slaps me across the face as hard as she can.
What?
Like, and it's all marble floors. So it's like, it reverberates. Everyone's like doing the whole turn and like, what is going on? And she is bawling and she looks me in the eye and she goes, because of your dad, my best friend has to move.
Oh my gosh.
Because her best friend, his dad was a senior pastor at another church that a lot of their congregation left and came to this church. And so they let him go as a pastor.
That's crazy.
And so he had to move because he had to go find another job.
Sure, yeah.
And she was blaming my dad through me.
Well, and like, you know, in a small rural community where everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
that's easier. Cause I'm like, man, that would have like, nobody knew, half the kids in my school and just so many of them. That's wild.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
There was another time I was at a friend's house doing back when Halo 3 was the coolest thing ever.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say I might have broken out Halo in not that distant past.
Yep.
Me and all of the cool band kids were playing. We were doing like a LAN party thing at another friend's house, and he was a pastor's kid, and it was at their parsonage behind there, and his dad came home, and just come down, hang out, say hi to the kids. Saw that I was there, and not 5 minutes later, my friend said, "Hey, I need you to call your mom to pick you up."
Dude. Dang. So it's like really rocking that community. Of people. 100%. That's crazy.
So like that's the stuff that like when you're talking like explosive growth, everyone talks about the amazing things, but there's like there's cost.
Oh yeah.
That comes with that other people don't really think about. And so that's my context to the church. As I'm coming into the church, as I'm growing.
So you're thinking like, I definitely want to do church stuff. Like that's my future.
Oh no, man. I'm like just seeing the cost of it behind the scenes. And my parents did their best to try to hide some of the frustrations, but they both were super passionate about the church. They both went to Ozark Christian College. They're in their own right, not because of one another. They both went because that's where they both wanted to be in full-time ministry. My mom is awesome. She's a battle axe, and she can rock a kids ministry better than anybody I know, and a preschool. And so there was a lot of pressure on us, being the first family type deal, whatever. My brother went to Ozark Christian College to be a worship pastor. My sister went to Ozark Christian College. She was going to be a missionary, but I didn't want any of that stuff. And my entire life being surrounded by passionate people that said, God wants me to do this. I know this is God's path for my life. God called me to this. God did this. God did that. And I never had that experience. I never felt like, God come down from heaven and like this is what you're supposed to do. And I know that a lot of people's story isn't that, but that's what it feels like when you're explaining it to other people.
Totally.
And so I honestly I was pretty upset with God. I'm like, fine, if he's not going to give me that, then he obviously doesn't want me. So I'm going to go do my own thing. So, I broke my dad's heart. So I'm like, hey, I don't want to be in the family business. So, graduated high school, had no idea what I wanted to do. I just knew you were supposed to go to college. And so I went to West Illinois University. I had a great history teacher. And so I was like, I'll just go for history education. Absolutely sucked in college. Just... because I didn't care. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Yeah. And so I never went to class. I loved the classes where they didn't take attendance. They just kind of like take your 4 exams, or whatever, and try to get by. And I remember it was my sophomore year. It was right before I got academically suspended. Rockstar kid. I clocked in 96 hours in like 4 days the week of finals on Call of Duty.
That's amazing.
Call of Duty World at War, I was great at.
Oh, yeah.
But
that's kind of history related.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, gosh. It was so bad.
Mode, yeah,
Yeah, my parents were like you're suspended. You can't go back to school. And so I was living with my brother and the campus pastor and the janitor of the church they were launching in Macomb.
Start of a joke.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So a janitor, a campus pastor, and a worship pastor walk into a bar.
And it's right across the street from the church. So they would literally just walk across. And then there was me. And it was and so I'm watching them launch a church and I'm like, I don't want any part of this. And so get suspended. I'm washing cars. Over the summer going, what the heck do I do? Because I didn't realize when you get suspended, like you can't just go to that college. Like you can't go to any college.
That's crazy.
Like they shut you down. And like I was in big boy timeout.
Wow.
And just trying to figure it out. And the campus pastor, Clayton, at the Macomb campus, calls me up and goes, hey, you're good with an Xbox, right?
Like,
I was like, yeah.
Am I ever?
He goes, can you be my tech guy for the weekend? That's my start into production ministry.
That's the best on-ramp I've ever heard.
Dude. If you led with that, like, do you know how many 13 to 18-year-old boys in your children's ministry?
So you're good at Fortnite, right?
Yeah.
You're in.
Yeah.
You're perfect.
I've never even served in production ministry ever. And he's like, I need a guy for this weekend. Turns out they were really struggling with production guys. When I came on part-time, and I was the 7th tech director they had in 3 years. So they were burning through production people trying to figure this stuff out. And it just, like, it was really tough. And then, so they brought me on to be more of the people person. And they brought another guy on who, funny enough, was also named Joey. He was like the tech guy. Like, he knew the stuff.
Okay.
He lasted 2 months.
Okay.
And he bounced. So, because both of us were part-time. And then they offered me the full-time spot. I never ran a soundboard, never done a light show, never even touched Pro Presenter. I had I started with 4 volunteers, 7 positions to run on a weekend. And the 4 volunteers I had, 3 of them were professors.
That's crazy.
And I'm at that point a college dropout.
Yeah. That's so funny, man. Oh my gosh.
That's my start. And that's, but I had to learn from my volunteers how to run stuff so that then I can turn around and teach them how to run it. It was a crazy start. And through that journey, they kept launching campuses just left and right. They did one in a shoe factory. That was just crazy huge. They did one that was in a pig pen, like an industrial pig pen.
What?
Yeah, 100% industrial pig pen. That one was crazy because it just caught people on fire so much. Like, people were sitting on other people's laps. We didn't even have an HR department at that time, but we needed one after that. I mean, it was just sheer insanity it's just these rural communities that were just desperate. There's drugs all over the place. And when you're in those rural environments and everybody knows everybody's business, the ability to be ostracized is so much higher.
Yep.
And we were the dirty church. We were, bring out your dead. That from Monty Python. We were. Yeah. Anybody that you don't want at your church, we'll take. And we don't care if you come in a suit. We don't care if you come in your pajama pants. We need you to wear some form of clothing. Yep. But and we had to specify. That was it. And gosh, just caught absolute fire. There's the other thing that's unique about the crossing was we always had a time of decision, an altar call, whatever you want to call it. But what we did is every auditorium, the front of the stage had steps. Mm-hmm. And so at the end of a message, Jerry or Clayton, whoever was preaching, would say, hey, we're moving to a time of decision. And then we do a back set of worship. And we would call people to come to the steps and pray. We had a lot of Catholic background, so coming up, kneeling down felt
made sense to them.
Some contexts that would be like crazy weird.
Yeah.
This one it felt a little bit better. But we'd have people go up there and we'd have to have a police officer up there because people would go up and leave drugs. Because it's I'm done with this. So there'd be dime bags up there. There'd be all sorts of stuff up there that's amazing. This is paraphernalia. We can't. We got to dispose of this.
Wow.
And that's really what made the crossing so special. So I just started out at the Macomb campus, and that's a town of 10,000, 15,000. It did have WIU when it was in session. It brought another 8,000 kids or something like that in, and cut my teeth there. Learned a lot, and learned about. Hey, as we grow, as we added campuses, as we added services, that the production really didn't matter as much. It was all about the people. I had 4 volunteers. My first and primary priority was I needed to get bodies in positions, and so learning how to be good in a lobby, talking to people, learning how to build relationships with your current people, so that like you have to have enough of a relationship to be able to ask them about their friends, and then be able not just tell them like, hey, you should bring your friend, and like, but like, no, hey, can you introduce me to your friend?
Yeah.
And make that connection that way, like, and learning the pastoring side of it. So that was kind of my start into it. Eventually, grew that ministry from those 4 people to about 40. Church was, chilling around 1,000, which you're in a town of 15,000, and that was the Crossings goal was 10% of your population.
Okay.
That was kind of like our benchmark for success, was if you had 10%. If you have 10% of your church, you think of Chicago.
Yeah.
What 10%? How big
insane.
of a church that would be? Like that was always our goal. You have massive influence in your community if 10% go.
Yeah.
So did that for a hot while. Then they asked me to, hey, we see what you're doing, and I was a pretty lazy person. I was great with people, but I'd figure out how to get all my work done in like 24, 48 hours and just grind it out, and then just
play Call of Duty
and go home and play Call of Duty.
Perfect. I love this guy.
It's fantastic.
and so like eventually they kind of caught on to that, and they're like, hey, you seem to have a lot of time.
The newly formed HR department was like, what's this Joey guy doing?
Oh yeah. So they're like, hey, can you do this at our other campuses? I was like, dang it. Because I had producers. That's where I learned like how to like have people just do your job for you. Always replace yourself. One of the campuses of the Crossing is Hannibal, Missouri, which is Mark Twain and all that sort of stuff. And one of the famous stories of Mark Twain is one of the kids in there getting everyone else to paint the fence. Like, oh, look how much fun I'm having painting the fence, right? And it's basically manipulation, but he got other people to pay him to paint the fence because of how fun it was to paint the fence. Well, for me, that line between discipleship and manipulation is who wins. Manipulation, you win. In discipleship, God wins. And so like getting people to serve, getting people to do things they don't want to do, loving on tech people that like, they're their own breed, 100%. And they are terrible door greeters. They're terrible in children's ministry. Yep. They're good for 2 things: security and production. And so just like the Crossing, all right, give me even in the church of give me all your unwanted people, even production. Yeah. Give me that church's unwanted people. Yeah. And give them community. And they are the best volunteers of any ministry, and I will fight anybody else who says anything different. Nobody else is going to serve door greeting every single day, 3 times a week, and come in for rehearsals to Anyway,
I want to see a church do that. Door greeter rehearsals.
Yeah.
Wednesday night, door greeting rehearsal. Let's go.
I'm ready to go.
We're going to run drills, guys.
And all the worship people, like they do the same thing, but they get to be on stage and look cool. Like, and they get the glory, and production doesn't, nor do we need it. But, it just shows how much heart they have. So yeah, so I started going to other campuses, all these other campuses, and started raising up teams, all volunteer, top to bottom. No, sometimes I would get a part-time staffer. Like, I was really excited. But this is just people that just, love God. And another great thing about rural people, especially in my current position and kind of what I'm learning now, is what people have and what people are willing to give. In a rural community where people don't have a lot, what they do have? Time. So I think a lot of rural people, like they'll look at larger churches in metro areas and go, oh my gosh, look how easy they have it. And, they have a paid band and they look at their budget and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, yes, but it's a trade-off.
Oh yeah.
Of I can either give you my money or I can give you my time.
And many people would rather give money because it's a lot easier to write a check and be like, you guys can figure it out with whatever.
This is my gift. And so like, but over there, it's like, so, anybody in those smaller communities, and like, I would take heart of that.
Yeah.
That they're giving what they have, what they can give. And like, that's super valuable and super important. So I did that for a little bit. And then I got called out by our Macomb College pastor. This dude, amazing guy, calls me into his office and sits me down and goes, I've heard you're good at discipleship. I've heard you're good at like talking to people, getting people. I think you suck. Straight up. And I'm like, I kind of got a little bit of my pastor's kid. Like, do you know who you're talking to?
Yeah.
Like, you really? And called me out on the carpet. And he's like, I don't think you're any good at this on the discipleship side. I see you getting volunteers. I see you on your surface level relationships, but I don't see you like discipling people. And I said, you're right. I'm doing what I know how to do, but I've never been discipled.
Yeah.
I've been in the church my whole life, but I've never been discipled. And he goes, I want to teach you how to disciple in my ministry. And so I did college age ministry as a ministry, which I think is ridiculously valuable for anybody in production or anybody listening. Like, there's what you do and then there's who you are.
Yeah.
And serving in a ministry that is not associated with your job is how you stay a Christian in the church world, in my opinion. So so he called me on that carpet and he taught me also like how to talk, how to lead from the stage, how to disciple people, walked me through the process, building small groups. Through that, I got to, baptize people and walk them through their faith. And dude, there is no mix, there is no light show, there is nothing I've ever done that has given me more of a rush than baptizing my best friend.
That's awesome.
So like that became the chase, the carrot on the stick to go after. And through him, got ordained. I just felt called in the ministry and got asked early on luckily before COVID hit, like, hey, we have this online ministry but we don't ever do anything. We just show it looks terrible. It sounds terrible.
Yep.
We need someone that has a skill set of production, but also a pastoral heart to be able to build this thing out. So I did that at the church for a while, for like 3-4 years, and got it in a great spot to a point where it's like, hey, to grow this any further, we need to really invest in social media stuff. And I'm like the worst millennial in the world because I don't do that.
Yep.
Like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, definitely not TikTok or anything like that. I just don't do it. Did that for a hot while and had a blast doing it. And then was actually on a campus pastor track. And so they asked me to do the connections role, which is like, parking lot, door greeters, donuts, the communion, whatever people call that. I did that for a year as prep to be a campus pastor. And then was excited about it, loved it, really enjoyed talking to people again after 4 years in online ministry where you talk to chat rooms.
But it reminds you of your Halo days, probably.
It does remind me of my Halo days.
Yeah, Call of Duty days.
I mean, I'll tell you.
You were prepped, dude. Your whole life prepared you for those moments.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's amazing.
Well, because also, if you've grown up gaming, like you understand the difference between a person and a username. Two very different things. And so it kind of helps you with that. Did that for a year. Then I had one of the funniest meetings ever. I love doing the connections thing. I got called into a meeting with the senior pastor and the executive pastor, in the small conference room, which is usually like the you're in trouble room.
It's a bad one, yeah.
Yeah. And they go, hey, we just had to let go of the multi-site production director. We will never trust a tech guy ever again. Will you be our tech guy? That's the pitch.
That's wild, dude. That would have been like very, very soon after is when I feel like I met you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah, so that was my pitch. That was the pitch I was given was we will never trust a tech guy ever again. There was a lot of, that guy he was a good dude. He just didn't understand church budgets. And so it was a lot of fiscal stuff.
Yeah.
And that really burned them, especially when you're in a rural
yeah.
community where every dollar counts.
Yep.
I think the crossing statistic was for every, like the national average on giving, the crossing was 50% less. So it was like, at that time, I think it was 8 or 9 campuses and like a $5 million total budget.
That's like,
and
it's bonkers.
Yeah, so you break that out. Like we were launching campuses for $300,000.
That's crazy, dude.
Top to
All
bottom.
in, yeah.
All in.
Yeah.
I had to do a whole tech package for $75,000.
That's amazing. And like I was in those rooms, like there were not small.
No, average
Tiny
was
rooms.
like 250 seats,
Yeah.
300 seats.
How many
it
were
was-
in the pig pen?
The pig pen? At first, yeah. I mean, it was like it was
yeah.
200.
What kind of PA do you put in a pig pen? I'm just so curious.
You just put a couple of point sources on sticks,
sticks and call it
just-
good.
and a prayer.
Oh my.
And just
man.
nobody cares about where your mix is when the people are singing so loud over it.
Hey,
Yeah.
that's a
not
good
also
problem to
not a
have.
bad problem, yeah.
It's a great problem to have.
So I mean, it was a wild journey, and that was the first time in my life. At that point, I'd been in ministry almost 10 years. It was the first time in my life where I had the interaction with God, praying with my wife, going, I don't want to do this, but I feel like God is telling me to do this. Like my whole life is kind of like the way that he's walked me through all these different steps. Like I'm supposed to do this. I'm built for this. The production team, hyper toxic, so much stuff going wrong. And I'm like, I just fixed this connections ministry role. I got everything set. I have great friendships. I'm loving what I'm doing. And I finally have it right. And it's like, here's the next mess. And I'm like, I just got over the tech guy moniker where people are starting to see me as a pastor and not as a tech guy.
Yep.
And there are, I don't care who you are, when you are in production, there are assumptions made about you of a type of person that you are. And I'm like, do I want to go back into that? Me and my wife prayed about it and said yes.
That's crazy.
So first time I ever had like staff under me, which was really interesting. So I had 6 guys on the team at that point in time, and then let go of 5 of them in 6 months. It's like it was like a whole season of Game of Thrones, man. It's like they're gone.
That's crazy. Was it just like toxicity that caused most of those people to need to go?
It was toxicity, bad circumstances, because we did what we could. We hired who we could, Like I had one guy. I mean, I'm 6 months into like working with people, and like I got called in with the HR guy, and he's like, "Hey, we're gonna need to let go of one of your guys," and I'm like, "Why?" And it's like, "Because he was selling drugs."
Nice.
And it's like, "Well, how do you know he was selling drugs?" It's like, because the guy he sold it to was at our recovery program and said, "Hey, do you know that guy just sold me drugs this past week?"
Gosh, dude.
It's like, oh my gosh. So
man.
But so there was some of that. So it's like, there's nothing you can do with that. But then there was like other ones where it was about changing the culture. There was a lot of guys on the team that were amazing. Like they were really good with production. They understood lights. They understood sound. They could make a great mix, but they didn't like people. And like one of my callings, regardless of any church or anything like that, one of my callings in ministry is, and you could totally call me out if I'm wrong on it, but it is, if it's not about people, it's not ministry. Yeah. That's kind of that's like kind of my passion and my heart. And so trying to change the culture from like high execution production to high value people, and being in like, hey, we're gonna be a team that is here doing the best we can with the gifts that God has given us to glorify Him. And if I lose 10% of the mix quality, but I've added 3 people not just onto the team, into a community, into the body of believers, into the greater C church, and their life is changed. I mean, we had like I put metrics on, like, from a production perspective, who in your ministry, Who on your team have you baptized in the past 2 years?
Yeah, that's a big question.
Because like in production, like we just like, well, that's not our job.
Yeah.
Show me that in scripture, because I can show you where it is that says it is your job.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that it was a culture change, culture shift. And so, so it just sheer carnage, except for one guy that stuck through it all. And I cared deeply about that dude. And so he stuck with, and he was honestly one of the most important because he was a super smart guy, and he knew all the things that I had no idea what I was doing. And so I'm starting from scratch. Yeah. I'm starting with one guy who can figure it out. I have at that 8 campuses at that point, maybe 9, with me and him.
And these are like all of your campuses. I remember because we drove to 2 or 3 of them. Like they were far away. It is not Chicagoland multi-site church that's another 15 minutes away. I'm like, oh, that's an easy drive. Like it's an hour.
It is. So every campus was 30 minutes away from each other. So to drive from the furthest west to the furthest east was like 4 hours.
Dude, it's so crazy.
North and south was like 3.5 hours. So yeah, anytime you wanted to go anywhere, you were at least in the car for 30 minutes.
Oh yeah.
Crazy.
And so yeah, if something goes wrong in a service, you can't like drive over there and fix it. Like they're hosed.
Yep.
And so took that, and that's when there was, I remember coming to, it was some sort of event. I think it was like a Spire or something like that. And I was intrigued by the Waves LV1.
Oh, yeah, I remember you getting on this kick.
Yes.
Yes.
And Jeff Sandstrom was teaching a class at this thing, and so we went to it, and I wanted to go talk to him. And class was fine. I don't even remember what it was about, but I wanted to go talk to him afterwards. And there was another guy that was listening on our conversation, and I was just kind of walking through what was going on, and he's like, "Hey, I think I can help you." And it is now the CEO of Slingshot. Mm. So
yeah, because you guys were connected. I feel like when Tim met your dad, it would have been at like Aspire or something like that, right?
Oh yeah. No, well, Tim met me first.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah, Tim met me first, and then found out there was a lot of other connections with Tim. Yeah. But he's like, "Hey, I think I think I can help you," and he's like, and gave me all of his stuff, and I was doing 2 different debates at the time. Like I'm in the middle of nowhere, which is not where production people go. And I'm going, I was debating about integration, and I'd always been told over and over again, you cannot afford integrators. That they're too expensive. Mm-hmm. Like this is not in our budget. We can't ever fit this. And I'm starting to sit there and do the math. I go, I have to find a competent audio guy that can install systems. I have to find a competent lighting person that can install systems. I have to find, a video person that can install systems. And I got to pay their salaries. I have to pay their health insurance. And I start totaling up, like with our HR people, how much that is. And I'm going, there's no way that an integrator is more expensive than this. And
that's a reoccurring cost.
Reoccurring all the time. And I have to somehow magically convince these super smart people to move to the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
Where you live there because your family has always lived there. Yes. Not because it's like, oh, I just really love it.
Yes.
And it's like, so that's where working, and then Tim, just reached out and was like, hey, what's this going to cost? Mm-hmm. Like, and that's how we got connected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's also how getting connected with Amplio, and which just and that led to like this amazing journey through that whole process. And I remember there was one time my first real pitch with an integrator was like I wanted someone to come in and tune a room because all of our stuff had been done by our own people. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know production stuff, but I know a hot spot and a low spot in a room, and this is rough. And so it's like, hey, can someone come in and tune this? And that tune turned into a whole PA reno, and Then we did like this crazy 4-way speaker
remember that
swap
happening.
thing in the middle of COVID. Like we did all sorts of crazy stuff. But yeah, so that was kind of my journey in with Kaleb. Because with you, I think I was looking for a video director, I think.
Yeah, so it was something.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how we connected.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we just kind of went through that and built the team back up piece by piece, person by person.
Yeah.
And just kind of grew from there, and then built that team up to about 7. Was there like 4 years, and then we had a senior pastor change. But honestly, the coolest, best senior pastor transition I've ever heard of. Not to.
I told many people about how you guys did this.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
So it's just a brilliance of my opinion, of my dad who was a senior pastor. He just had seen a lot of his friends who were senior pastors, and just those transitions just decimate churches. And he just felt, and he saw heroes just get turned into zeros real quick. And he felt convicted by it. And so he called out in one of our executive pastors, like, you're going to be the guy. 10 years before he was going to be the guy. And he said, the next 10 years, every year, you're going to get 5% more of the messages. So we're going to start at 80, like it was like 85-15 probably when he started. Then it was 80-20, 75-15. And then it just, every year, just kept going over the course of 10 years. To the point when the actual transition happened, the congregation was like,
Well, duh.
yeah, like, okay. Like there was no momentum slowdown. There was no, like, it was just like so smooth and just incredible. And but in that, anytime you have a senior pastor transition, there's vision change. Just like when I jumped into my roles and there was vision change. And, the guy who took over, amazing guy, unbelievable preacher, and he is absolutely crushing it right now. But I got to kind of ride off into the sunset with my dad, and that was super special for me. We're very rare of having a father-son relationship that worked, and like got along with each other. And I was like, you know what? I think this is kind of my opportunity to leave the nest, and really felt it was a lot of prayer. I mean, that was probably a 6-month conversation, almost a year conversation, and ended up decided to leave. Took almost the church and those elders, like I talked about at the very beginning, just unbelievable men of God. They were amazing through that whole process, and I was able to take a full year off before jumping into a new spot, and that's due to their generosity.
That's huge.
And really allowed me to kind of figure out who I am and not what I do. And so after that, did a bunch of searching with you, and I was probably an absolute pain in your butt through the entire process.
You were like the most unique type of person because you had all this experience, everything we just talked about.
Yeah.
And this knowledge, but also like, this is exactly what I want and I don't know where to find it and where are those things. And you were also like so I remember a conversation with you that we had of like, I feel like God is calling us to Indianapolis. Don't know why, don't know where. We've seen a couple of churches there we like, but like, I have no idea of any opportunities. Doesn't look like they're hiring right now, and all that stuff. And that was it was probably 6 months, of us like just having conversations, just going, oh, I know this guy. That was a fun season for me to watch from the outside, even though I knew it was like, as that year was coming closer and closer to an end, things started getting more, like, oh my gosh, we got to figure out what do we actually want to do. And so, but it was really cool to see like how, God was working through you in that season, and you and your family, and just going, what is the next thing? Where is it going to be? And, and now where you're at now is like, it's so cool to now see. How long have you been at Northview now?
I've been at Northview. It'll be 2 years
That's crazy.
in January.
And like, I think of that when you started there, when you told me like, hey, I'm going there, I'm like, that's amazing. And then to now, and just like hearing about all the stuff that you guys have done and are doing, and bringing a lot of that experience and knowledge from a completely different community.
Yep.
Like you think of the ruralness of where you guys were at, and then where you're at now in Carmel, Indiana. You're like, oh my gosh, like the complete opposite, in church and style and everything like that. But so as you were transitioning to go there, like how did you kind of feel like, hey, this is the place that we think we're gonna land? Because it was that whole story was
as
weird.
Part of that too. You said something really interesting as you were like in that season between seasons, how you had to kind of figure out who you were, who you were apart from your dad, I imagine, that ministry context and this place you'd been for your whole life. And I think that for a lot of people listening, like there's some resonance to that of like, how do I separate myself and my health and like my wholeness from this thing that I do and maybe I've done for a really long time? So I just be curious like what that process was like and how you went through that as you're kind of preparing for the next thing.
I needed it. I needed it bad. That time off. And now it's something, I was really talking to my team today about it, and I'm just like hardcore been preaching it. Even I'd say the past 3 months, it's just really on my heart. In production, and it can happen in other ministry too, but I really feel like it happens in production. It is very easy for what you do to become who you are. And I have not seen that happen where it made you a better person. Like, and I really do think, I think it's just that, you're dealing with people. It's the ministry burden, the ministry weight is like, it changes you. It calluses you. It does so many things that you don't even know. You quit listening to messages because it's just another one down.
Yeah.
You see the baptisms, but they're like, yeah, awesome. We had 14 baptisms this week. Great, cool, awesome.
Now I got to go drain the tank.
Yeah, now I go drain the tank, or like I go make a baptism video, like of this sort of thing, or like you see like lives getting saved, hands getting raised, and you just get used to it, and it's so easy. The unbeknownst to everybody else, especially in production, because production is like the nervous system of the church. You're connected to everything: children's ministry, adult ministry, youth. I mean, everything. It morphs you. It pushes you back in, and you kind of get a little bit of this God complex sometimes because you're the savior that comes in and saves the day all the time, right? Because you're fixing something. You're, oh my gosh, thank you so much. You're a lifesaver. Like it's all this stuff. You get this complex, and it slowly it can become who you are. Like the crossing wasn't just what I did, it was who I was. And that's wrong. And it took me a year to figure out, to be outside of church, to figure out that was wrong. And that I am not the Crossing Church. I'm not Northview Church. That's what I do through what God has given me. I am a child of God. That's who I am. I'm a sinner now saved through the grace and love of Jesus Christ. Through the waters of baptism, that is who I am. And, when you're, I was at the Crossing for 14 years. When you're in ministry that long, it can happen.
Yeah.
And it is so subtle. And I really do think it is a great thing. And I never like giving the enemy too much credit, but I do think it's something that Satan can focus you so much on the excellence. He can focus you so much on the production, on the, if I just get this PA, if I just get these lights in this light show, I'm going to make this church so much better. Like you can turn that into something spiritual, but it's not. It's you. It's pride. At least that's what it was for me. And like that year off of being away, I don't know. It felt like it's like I benched myself, you know? And it's like, oh, that's not who I am. And, talking to other churches and figuring out what they were doing and what I was bringing, like I could tell, like I would slide back into that person of this, like, oh, I can just, and I'm like, that's not, I got to do better. Anytime you're in a season transition, it's always figure out not what you did, it's what can you do better. I always said, like with replacements, as we're, raising people up, and they always say, replace yourself. And people always think, replace myself, find someone who can be me, who can do what I do. And I always said no to that. You find someone who can do what you do better than you. That's real replacement. Yeah. That's growth. That's change. And so, like, I had to find a new me that was better than the old me. Yeah. And, and I think, I remember writing out, and I think you're the one who told me to do this, when I was looking at churches, write out, pray, spend a lot of time in prayer, and then write out like the top 10 things you want in a church. And so I did that. And that was kind of part of that process of looking at different churches. And there's a lot of them that got really close to checking all the boxes. And what was funny was like, I just felt I had this calling, me and my wife, like to Indiana, to Indianapolis, like that's where we're supposed to be. And we actually moved there before I had a job.
Wow. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I was like, you guys are crazy.
Yeah, you're like, bold strategy, Cotton. Like, and, but I just was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. I know this is supposed to be the thing. And like, and then I met with the people in Northview, met with Steve, and it just felt right. And I'm going, it felt different than all the other interviews. And so where I'm at now, it's for me, it's really cool because this is the first time after, 15 years of ministry or whatever that number is. But like, this is the first time where I can truly say, without a shadow of a doubt, I'm exactly where God wants me to be. Because beforehand, you had the whole dad thing. You had the whole, like, I was a kid running up and down those, like, if you're at the same church you've always been at, awesome, great. Yep. But like, there's all these other circumstances that could also be the reason why you're there. Like, I'm at the church I'm at now because I believe that's where God has me to be. And it's changed me as a person and as a leader. And now I'm trying to help, my team, my guys, with understanding that too. And, helping them be better than me. Yeah. Don't let the job that's going to turn you into a person you don't want to be. Don't let that happen. This is what you do. But this is who you are. And if you remember that, getting involved in other ministries, like I talked about earlier, that's a big reason for all that sort of stuff. I think if people can do that, that is how you can explore what health looks like in production environment.
Yeah. What does that kind of look like for you on the other side of that season now, like in this new context? How do you feel like your role and what you do is expressing itself differently as you sort of separated your sort of being and your value from the role? Like, that must allow you to engage in it in a different way.
Oh, yeah.
So like, what does that look like, and how does it feel different than before?
So I think one of the biggest things I learned was detachment. I think it's like an unspoken spiritual gift.
Oh, yeah. It's part of the sort of like Desert Father traditions. Like, I think that's the term is like holy, what do they call it? Holy indifference.
Yes.
It's like that practice of detachment, of like release, and like indifference we think of as a bad thing.
Yeah.
But there's a way to apply it in a way that's really healthy and freeing.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
In a way that allows you to serve in a better way. But
that's
anyway.
cool.
I mean, I would fight with our multi-site worship pastor, which, by the way, I'm not opposed to fighting. I think fighting's great. Iron sharpens iron. And I think if it can be healthy, it's fun. But like we would fight over stuff, and because I just believed in certain things, like this is how we're supposed to do this, and he's like, no, this is how we're supposed to do this, and like and over all sorts of different things, and now after having that time off, figuring out who I am, it's like unity above all else.
That's awesome.
You know, it is in whatever you're doing. We want the lights to be different. Okay, let's make the lights different.
Yeah.
You want a different audio experience. Okay, let's do a different audio experience. That detachment of the thing and going, hey,
from your value.
Yeah.
Like I'm a bad person if I don't think these lights are amazing.
Yeah.
You know, or I'm failing at my role if this audio mix isn't exactly how I want it to be.
Oh yeah. If I didn't get 10 compliments about my mix, you know, because you're only going to remember the one guy who said he didn't like it anyway.
Of course, yeah.
Like, you know, it's that like that doesn't define anymore. Now it's what defines us is in what I feel like is I'm trying to get to is that point of you know, that unity defines us.
Yeah.
That where we go together is far more important than how far that you go yourself.
And it's a collaborative environment because it doesn't mean that you don't bring your insight, opinions, preferences. It just means that they get melded with the other people on the team, and that what comes out is going to be some sort of compromise, some sort of discussion. Maybe you get some of the things that are your preferences, but if you don't sometimes, how does that derail you? Or can you let it not derail you?
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, it's getting back to the, you know, the funny thing of, you know, looking back over that long of time, it's how many things did I fight over that 99% of the congregation doesn't even know exists.
Yeah, 100%.
It's
So many things.
Yeah, and like, how many times did that hurt relationship?
Yeah.
How many times did that hurt my ability to pastor people to? And so it's like, no, like do what you're supposed to do. Have excellence. But don't sacrifice. When excellence becomes an altar that you sacrifice people on. And it can be very different. You know, and you know, if you're a person that thinks that, you know, well, that couldn't happen. I mean, gosh, Moses, like those guys literally watched the waters part and a pillar of flame be a flashlight and food come down from heaven, and they still built a golden calf after Moses was gone for a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, and you think like, and we're gonna be any better?
Yeah.
You know, no, we are the exact same thing as those Israelites.
Yeah,
where my audio mix is my golden calf, where my all that stuff are golden calves, and like, and you can't have that. It's got to be, regardless of my opinion. I mean, there's tons of things at Northview that I would love to change and love to do differently. But it's not about me. It's about the mission, the vision, and the greater church. And if we can't do it together, there's no point in doing it at all.
And that makes me think too, like the odds of you being around long enough to see the changes that you want to make happen are exponentially greater if you're building a team and relationship and unity and trust than if you're just battling each other all the time trying to get your way. Odds are like you're probably less likely to get the things that you would hope happen because, you know, you're not able to do it as a group. You're just having to do it on your own. And like your longevity in ministry is probably going to suffer if that's the culture.
When you're in leadership, there's only one thing really to fight for. And that is relationship. And so if you're a person that has staff underneath you, this is something I've learned. The one thing to fight for is fight for your team. Fight for your guys. But, you know, scripture says as shrewd as a snake, gentle as a dove, or wise as a snake to be, you know, and so you got to pick your moments, pick your battles, be wise in how you do it. And then when you do it, when you strike, because you're still going to strike, with gentleness. And so a lot of my past 2 years at Northview has been rebuilding relationships, rebuilding trust, if the previous me would see the me now, he would laugh at me because he's like, you're just letting people run over you. Yeah. And I've got staff that'll tell me, why do you let people run over you? And I go, because unity above all else. You know, methods will always change. but the message won't. Let's focus on that.
Yeah.
And so I think those are some of the things that I'm trying to do, trying to keep, from that middle management perspective, which I really feel is I think that is like the worst part of the church right now. I think there's a lot of great leaders out there, and there's a lot of people that just want to help and be a part. It's everything that happens in between there, I think, needs a little more scrutiny. And
that's interesting.
Yeah. And I think that, because it's never like, yeah, I mean, seniors, there's things that can happen there. But I mean, if you talk to, because there was a lot of church hurt at Northview that I came into, and my whole ministerial career has been, working with people that have church hurt, working with people that are just toxic, all that sort of stuff. It's never the top dog.
Yeah.
It's always the people in between. And everyone's just trying to do the best they can. And so you just got to, one thing I always tell the guys is grace on grace on grace. If you can't lead with grace, you can't lead at all. Yeah. And,
Yeah, that's discipleship right there.
It's something.
Because it takes such a more like grounded, centered, secure person to be able to, like you're saying, absorb what other people are doing in a way that somebody might perceive. If their goal is to get one up on someone, then they would perceive that as why you're letting them run over you.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's just a different fundamental mindset of what you're doing and what the whole purpose of your interaction, your relationship even is.
Yeah. I mean, you go to Jesus, and just the way he operated, the way he moved, I think kind of represents that. It was this in the world but not of the world. It was the detached mindset of, and yeah, it's like, why would you do this? Why would you do that? He could have fought the Pharisees, Sadducees, all he wanted, but he didn't, because he was striving for unity the entire time. And I'm going, if we're supposed to follow him, that's how we're supposed to do it. And so I used to hate the concept of production being a support ministry. I used to hate that word.
Yeah.
And I do think there are some qualms with it that I don't agree with, because I do think it is still a ministry. You can still have vision. You can still push the ball forward. And sometimes production actually needs to lead out.
Yeah.
And so like there are moments to lead in a support role. But I mean, I think there's a drastic shift in the church, especially post-COVID, where, I mean, now a lot of churches, you hire a campus pastor and then you hire a production person. Those are your top two hires, where it used to be a worship person or an associate or discipleship.
Yep.
I mean, we are absolutely integral. And so I think in this new role that we're in the power that we actually do have, that God is giving us responsibility over, we need to figure out how to be much more pastoral with that responsibility than execution focused. Because that's just going to lead you right down the same path everyone else is. And listen, there's always going to be another church with bigger toys, with a better way of doing it.
Yep.
But our responsibility, like Jesus said in Matthew, like it is to be, to make disciples of all nations, baptized in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. As long as you're doing that, you're going to have the favor of God.
That's so good, man.
Good word, man.
Dude, I love seeing how much God has done through you, even just in the last 2 years. And I think, hearing that story in the way you just said it, I think Northview wouldn't have been as good of a fit as it is now if you wouldn't have had that time to figure out some of those things and ask those questions to really figure out, like, hey, what is my identity in? Where is God calling me? And what is that next?
Well, I just think, like, for anyone listening or like thinking about where you are in ministries, like so much of what your opportunity and the kind of environment you can step into in the future is like dependent on the work you're willing to do in yourself today.
Yeah.
Like preparing yourself to be ready for the next thing, skill-wise, interpersonally, like your own inner work of having to come to terms with who you are and like your own worth outside of your job, like all the things you talked about. Like if you haven't started to do some of that, like you aren't ready to receive whatever that good thing is that's potentially down the road, because like you don't see it for what it is. You're not ready to step into that. And I mean, it's important.
Yeah.
I mean, in our directors meetings, which is 4 of us in there, we don't talk about production. We talk theology. We talk about what in how are we moving and how is God moving in what we're doing? But it's all in context of Scripture. And one of the post production video director, his name's Mikhail, has been has God placed him in my life? I'm 100% sure of that. Like him and I, we go out to eat probably every other week, and like the thing he challenges me on right now is Scripture. I mean, that dude can just rattle stuff off. And so we, two production people, two guys that can sit there and go toe-to-toe on anything in Premiere or whatever, or a soundboard or a console or anything like that. Like, we talk about Jesus, we talk about ministry, and I think that, especially with all the COVID stuff, everyone just, this massive swing towards excellence. And I'm going, man, I feel like we're missing the ministry. I feel like we're missing your first calling is to Jesus. The tool you use is your production equipment. And 100%, you have cooler toys than everybody else. And that's awesome. That's why we do the job, right? But it's about people first. Be willing to give up the 5% for the person that your life, you're going to change. Because they're going to find a home in Jesus.
It's such a good reminder, man. I'm thankful for that, and I hope that just the people listening that find themselves in that seat or wrestling with kind of where they fall in those categories, that they're able to take some time and pray for discernment with them and their family and whatever that looks like in this next season to lead better in the ministries that they're already in. Or to lead, really well in the next season, whatever that looks like, and whether it's another role and, wherever they're going. But thanks for coming out.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, so good, man. So
cool.
good.
Anytime.
We get to hear so many cool stories of all kinds of different, ministry journeys and backgrounds and paths to get to where people are in their current, ministry season. And there's always something interesting for sure. And challenging and inspiring. So appreciate you sharing yours today.
I appreciate it, man. And don't skip out on the rural churches. There's a lot of rural churches out there. Everyone thinks of the big dogs, but there's a lot of rural churches out there that are doing some epically innovative stuff. And if you are ever in the Quincy area,
or 3 hours in any direction of the Quincy area, you could find a church.
Hit up one of those churches. But also, if you're in the Quincy or Macomb area. And Caleb, you know about this. There is a secret there that is next level.
Are you going to tell the podcast audience?
Called Chicken Lips.
Yeah, he took me there. I was like, are these real lips or what's the deal here?
Have you ever had chicken lips?
No, sir.
They are. This is you only get this in rural world. But a chicken lip,
dude,
is a chicken breast that's butterflied, rolled up, thrown into a deep fryer, covered in buffalo sauce.
It was really good.
That'll preach.
It was very good.
All right. Well, if I'm ever in Quincy,
chicken lips.
There we go.
Dude.
Haven't found
I'll
places
have to
like
report
that.
back to you on how I thought it was.
Straight up. Man. Well, dude, thank you. Man, I'm excited.
What a great way to end.
It's such a good way to end.
Chicken lips.
Chicken lips.
Let's go.
But those of you who are listening, thanks. And we will see you all next week. And come to Philo next
check
year.
it out.
Philo 2026. I don't know what the dates are, but they'll announce them tomorrow. So by the time this episode airs, it'll be out.
Yep.
So
Thanks,
anyways,
everybody.
Thanks. See you next week.